All right. Hello, everyone. All right. Hello, everyone. It's great meeting you. My name is Wooster. I'm a head of communications at Hashed. So for those who haven't heard of Hashed, we're a crypto VC. Our office is based in Seoul, San Francisco, Bangalore, Singapore, and Abu Dhabi. So before we start, I'd like to take a note that I'm pretty sure everyone here has heard of what vibe coding is. People have been saying a lot about pessimistic and dystopian views on how vibe coding will change the society as a whole. And we've been making voices both on the policy level and on the builder level on how things will change and how we can kind of cope and bring more optimistic future. We as Hashed, we're more of a technical optimist. So we think the technology will eventually enable the social benefits as a whole. So what I'm going to talk about here today is something more hopeful, per se, on how vibe coding is changing the scene for the founders and builders. And as a backer and an investor of those founders, how we should really cope with it. So vibe coding isn't really just about making software faster. It's also about building companies differently. And that really translates into the cycles for startups will change eventually, and the VCs should change accordingly. So this is the gist of my presentation here today. So this is the whole point that I'll be making today, that VC will no longer be the gate of capital. It will be more of a hyperconnector. And this sounds very obvious, but this is a really difficult thing to do as as my career cycle in the VC. Making the right connections at the right timing for the right people is something that you would always need to see the landscape, and you would have to meet and excavate good networks as you go by. So that's why I'm here at Denver, to meet with great people of you and really hear you out and see how we can really work together on that. So essentially, for vibe coding, it really breaks down the barriers of execution really, really dramatically. So what it does is money is no longer a scarce resource for the founders. That means, why would they need to raise from the VCs if they don't need to raise money to build a product? So my point is, writing checks is not enough. It's not a strong moat for VCs anymore. So historically, this has been the cycle for startups. Founders come with ideas. They'll raise money to hire a team, and they'll build a product and test on the market. And most of the cases, you're not really sure if they will succeed in the market test on the validate level. That's why VC has always came with the risk. It's a good idea, but after the execution, you don't really know what to turn out in the market. Like, everything's based on the hypothesis. With vibe coding, what allows is now the founder doesn't really need to hire new teams. They just build, they validate. If they don't get any, optimistic feedback from the market, they can go back, idea, build again. So this is a constant loop of executions that the founders should be doing, and that loop is way much quicker. They can literally do it within hours with vibe coding. If they find a sweet spot for that, and there's a high possibility of scaling after that. So what this is really telling is now the founders can really ship usable products. They run experiments, and they get market feedbacks before fundraising. That now really translates into how VCs really should cope with it. So why this is happening now? Because, as I said, execution cost collapsed. You pay $200 on Claude code, and you just build product within days. You can spend hours when you sell something really feasible that requires a lot of designing work or like coding work, everything's compiled into one execution process. So it compresses dramatically the time from concept to shipping, which means the iteration. It's not about building nowadays. It will be more about faster iterations of products and keep going on, build, test, learn, and that cycle is getting quicker. So the bottleneck used to be an implementation for the startups back in the days. They came up with a great idea. The output has not always been, but a lot of cases, we've seen a lot of cases where the outputs were quite poor compared to the initial vision. We would say now the bottleneck is more about decision making. It's about what to build, what to cut, and what to measure. And that we're really categorize on what the good characteristics of a founders would be. And that has always been, but my point is now that's even stronger. So if building is easier and if money is not a scarce resource anymore, so what's scarce? And as I said, this is just my opinion, that judgment, direction, and validation will be more scarce resource from the founders that we'll be looking for. AIs would make it easier to build, but at the same time, it also increases the responsibilities of the founders to find the right bets, the right directions, and the right people with some sort of subset of discipline. And if everyone can ship, so how would they really differentiate their products from other people who might have an access to the same code or really easy to copy the products? There will be a lot of differentiating factors for that, but for today, I'll be just going on more of a high-level stuff where the founders really need to have more insights on seeing what's really in the market. So supply is easy and demand is hard. This is where we would really get into as a VC. So AI really scales production, but not really the demand. You can make great products, right? You can have all the functions, all the content that you can build. How would you guarantee that your product will really reach the target audience that you would be targeting? Or how would you make sure those audience will constantly use your product? How would you repeat that process? And that goes beyond production. It goes beyond more of a go-to-market where you need a lot of distribution channels, the right people, and the right marketing. And these all includes, a production of a product itself, but not just coding or writing softwares. So this is really where, the VCs really come in. So old VCs used to have an advantage in paying checks, writing checks. And nowadays, this is not, I would say great founders don't really need money. They need a good backers. So they are having a trusted access to the resource that they need to build. And that's not about engineering. So the 2 points, one is a signal quality that is required from the VCs, saying there will be a lot of polished demos that would come out. So a lot of products will actually look very attractive compared to before. So how do we go through that noise and really find what's real? The second is once the founders really met the right angle and they hit the sweet spot and we're seeing the potential to scale, how do we actually going to help other than injecting capital? So VCs should really become a super connector. Obviously, capital allocation is a key business model for VCs to make profits, but it's not the end of an investment cycle. We have to work as a second team with the founders, so they have confidence in knowing what to do with the product that they have built. They need to know how to reach to the audience. They need to know who the customers really are. And that's not just about the general B2C customers. It includes businesses with the government or even with the institutions. So 3 elements. Verified trust is essentially connections that comes with credibility. We know which angle of network that we should inject based on the stage of the product. And obviously, the connections that we provide should really come with a real output. So we started a new acceleration program at Hashed. It's called Vibe Labs. This is a lot different from other accelerating programs where they start with an idea. We kind of coach pitching. We kind of go on track on the production process. But that production process is so quicker nowadays that we don't really need to track. So what we are planning to do, this is going to be our 8 weeks program based in South Korea, Seoul. We will be tracking and helping founders to ship the products. They can ship products every day, test in the market, and we'll validate the data together. And if it doesn't work, they can go back and ship again. So what we're trying to see is how fast a founder can actually adapt to the changing environment in the scene, and how fast would he or she be able to cope with the market feedback and kind of sync that with the product. So what we're trying to see here is not the product that the founders would make. We're trying to see the quality of what character the founders can actually perform very well in the era of vibe coding. So 2 questions. For VCs, I would say this is a rhetorical statement that venture capital should really become more of a venture trust network to really help and grow with the founders. For founders, it's not really just about products, but it really comes with the validation and the ability to build connections. So thank you very much. The time's up. And if you're interested in the Vibe Labs, our acceleration program, this is the QR code. And we'll be expanding to Singapore and Abu Dhabi this year on this program. Thank you.